Chris, can you send our people away?
You bet. Yep, it's just, whoops. You were a little fast for me.
I told you it would be fast.
I know. I was too busy. I was too busy talking, and then whoops.
Do you want me to sing a little bit, or there we go.
Did I send
Okay.
people already in? Nope. I'm gonna close them real quick. I'm having some technical difficulties.
Hey Jim, the link you shared, we needed access to.
Oh, of course you did. Oh, okay.
Well, see,
Once
this
you all
buys me
go
some
in,
time.
I will change that.
Perfect.
Keith, are
Thank
you
you.
outside?
I am. I'm trying to get some fresh air today.
Oh my gosh, aren't you freezing?
It's not going to last all meeting, that's for sure.
Okay. Let me give you access to that document. That would be kind of helpful, I think.
Take your time, because I have 33 seconds before the room's closed, so I can throw everybody back in.
Oh, you're kidding.
Okay. I got so flustered so quickly that I clicked the, I think the open room on accident. So there's probably some people already in there. Like, what is, oh, there are people in there already.
Yeah, Keith, can you access it now?
I think Georgia sent us an extra one. Try Georgia's.
Yes, hers works.
All right. So sorry for those of you that are back.
Jim,
Thanks,
your
Georgia.
link works now.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh my goodness. All right. Let's see what I did.
I feel like I should have Jeopardy music playing.
Easy.
Chris, it actually makes me feel better because I feel like this has happened to me in some of our lessons. It's just like, like, why is it taking so long? Or
right.
And if you, thank you so much for that. Because if you knew how much time I spent actually making these groups on this flipping piece of paper, because there was this piece of paper, and there was this piece of paper, and there was this piece of paper, and I'm like, oh. So I do appreciate it, Lord Grace. Thank you.
Well, it always feels like it's happening when there's like a lot of adults staring at you. Like it'll go seamlessly with all kindergartners, you know, but when it's like there's other adults that are watching, you're like, why isn't this working? So we've all been there.
Yes, we have, definitely.
Almost. I think I got it. And
it'll be 4 minutes by the time everyone goes in.
Yeah. All right. I got them all.
Okay.
I got everybody.
There they go.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, Chris, that's so funny.
I should have used that as my welcoming. Put a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4.
That's okay.
I'll pause the
some of my insights and then have you go into groups where you can use this. I know in the agenda, Chris posted the link for the mentoring language piece into your folder. So if you want to bring that up, you can actually bring that up and look at it as I go along or not. You can just go along with what I'm presenting and share it. But what I want to tell you about mentoring language is it's nothing too new or too revolutionary. I may not blow your mind today with what I'm sharing with you. What is new is how to use it. And I think a lot of people know these things, but may not be practicing them. And there is the difference between those. I think mentoring language really allows people to see you as a coach. There were a lot of questions about how can I get people to see me as a coach? Using mentoring language is unique in schools, and to talk to people this way starts to build your reputation as a coach. And I think I mentioned this last time, but language is idiosyncratic, meaning it's really unique to the person. So as I'm talking to you about this language, you'll have a variety of stems, but you need to pick the ones or develop ones that make sense to you or sound like you, that you're actually going to use. And so that it becomes a part of the way you talk. And my last little point, think of armor. So when I would go and mentor new teachers, I would drive into a parking lot and I would get out of my car with my bag and I would envision literally me putting on some armor. And what that meant to me was I was putting on my mentoring language. It was a way of, I've got to, because I don't talk normally using mentoring language, but I actually had to dress using it. So when I walked into my meetings, it was something that I was going to use. And it just gave me a visual of thinking about, okay, I'm going to be meeting with a teacher. I've got to talk in this way now. My mentees were actually surprised that I didn't always talk that way when we would hang out socially. They're like, Jim, you're not always like that, are you? No, I'm not. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 today. Like I said, I'm going to go over these fairly quickly to give you enough time to actually practice these. But the first one is paraphrasing. And paraphrasing basically is hearing what a speaker has said and restating the content using your own words. And you can summarize and you can organize that set, but you're basically feeding back to that person what they've already said. It means that shows that you're listening, that you're understanding what was said, and that you care what was said. Nowhere in paraphrasing do you do any value judgments or anything. You're basically parroting back what you said or what that person said so that they can hear it. Now, one of the things when I talk about paraphrasing, everybody knows this, but I call this the unhidden or uncelebrated champion of mentoring language. And the reason why is this: a lot of people may be talking to you about issues that have been in their head for days or even weeks. And paraphrasing, and they share it with you, right? Paraphrasing allows them to hear their ideas back at them. And in a way, it separates them from the ideas, and often they can confirm or change what they said to you just by paraphrasing. And in some cases, I know this sounds really maybe too simplistic, I've changed teaching practices by paraphrasing. So you said that none of your students know how to behave in your class. Well, I didn't really mean none. I really meant, they start to clarify some of their understandings by having you really listen to them. And paraphrasing can be a huge gift for a teacher because it shows that you are really listening. And so I call it the champion of mentoring language. It's really powerful. So here are some stems that you can use for paraphrasing. So what you're saying in other words, I'm hearing you bring, I'm hearing a lot. I heard you say, things like that. It sounds like you are just, saying back to them what they said to you. Again, very simple strategy, but to actually use it can be a powerful thing for our teachers. Okay, the next one is clarifying questions. Clarifying questions, if you're familiar at all with critical friends, this is a part of protocols, but clarifying questions allow you to gather more information about what was shared by the speaker. You can actually learn more about the speaker's thinking. You can do connections, discover meaning words that were used. Clarifying questions give you more information so that you can truly understand the problem. And so that middle one, learning more about the speaker's thinking. If you remember, we've talked about our teachers that we're working with, they have that garden in their head. By doing clarifying questions, you're trying to figure out what's in that garden. And so you can ask questions to figure out, tell me a little bit more about this. Tell me a little bit more about this, so that if you come up with an idea, it can match more what's in their head. So I often will use clarifying questions to dig a little deeper. The other thing, teachers, at least the teachers that I dealt with, deal a lot in absolute words. So they'll say always, never, those words that are extreme. Clarifying questions also allows you to get beyond that extremity so that you can say, I heard you say that all of your students aren't behaving. Is that really the case? Well, actually what I meant was so and so on. So you start to listen for those extreme words. And so clarifying stems are here. Can you tell me more about? So are you saying, what did it mean when you said? How did what happened make you feel? These are just ways of kind of digging around to figure out what's happening in their head. And I have a big caveat for clarifying stems. Please do not include suggestions in your clarifying questions. So it's very tempting, like you've heard a problem and in your head you have a solution. Don't question towards your solution as far as, have you tried this new strategy called clip up charts? You know, that is actually giving them a suggestion versus what strategies have you tried for your classroom management? That's a clarifying question, and there's a difference between those two. But when you build in a suggestion into your clarifying, you start to put your agenda on that teacher, and you're not there yet. So that's my little caveat. I've fallen into that trap a few times doing clarifying questions. And the last one I want to share with you are mediational questions. And like paraphrasing, this is a really powerful thing to do with teachers because mediational questions really change teachers' thinking. That's the goal of a mediational question. So you want to pose a question that extends thinking or redirects a teacher's thinking in a new way. So you could hypothesize what might happen, imagine possibilities, analyze what worked and what didn't. So these are some suggestions. Mediational questions are tricky because they're almost always in the context of a conversation, that a teacher will be talking to you and you hear their train of thinking and you want to change that train to a new track. Instead of telling them what track to do, you come up with a question that puts them on a new track. So I have one mediational question that I almost always use with every mentee because it was a common thing that the mentees were sharing with me, and I'll share it with you. Yeah, mediational questions invite the teacher to think of something that they wouldn't have thought of their own. And when we impact teachers' thinking, we're impacting their practice. So this is a real important coaching strategy. We want to impact their thinking. So here are some mediational questions that I've listed. And the bottom one that I've bolded is my catch-all question that I used with every teacher that I worked with. So you're sitting down with a teacher and they're telling you, I'm looking at Kate Kelly right now. So Kate won't behave very well. Hey, Kate. Kate won't behave very well in my classroom. Or no, it might even sound like this. I'm doing this assignment and I know Kate can't do it. My mediational question was, well, what will it take for Kate to be successful? So this teacher is already telling me this student is going to fail. I want to change her thinking into success. Do you see how that mediational question worked? It's a really powerful one. Kate's not behaving in my classroom. What will it take for Kate to behave? And that changes this teacher's directional thinking into a new direction. And so they're really powerful, but they're also very contextual. And I know I've asked a good mediational question when the teacher doesn't answer right away. And sometimes even on my next meeting, they said, you know, I've been thinking about that question you asked me, Jim, and I have a better response now. Yay! That was a good mediational question. Pat myself on the back because I've impacted that teacher's thinking. If they can answer your mediational question right away, it wasn't really a mediational question. So they're pretty powerful, but it's hard for me to give specific examples. All right. So before we go on to our role play, are there any insights, ahas, points of thoughts? I'm going to pause my share so that I can actually see all your wonderful faces. What are you thinking about right now as far as your, the three types of mentoring language that I presented?
The clarifying questions section where the point about discover meaning of words kind of resonated, especially, you know, as we're thinking about social justice and equity and just the language that we use, and knowing that we're on the same page about that language and what it means kind of was a good reminder. When a teacher would say, you know, the student just doesn't do something or is misbehaving, it's like, what does that look like? Can you know, because I have an idea about what that might be and what they, you know, envision that being. I think that's an important place to start with. So that was a good reminder for me.
Absolutely, Ruby. That's such a powerful way of starting to understand how that teacher's thinking about behavior in their classroom. Because we know what it looked like in our classroom, but we may not know what that teacher's viewpoint is from their viewpoint. So I love that point. Any other thoughts?
I'll just keep going back to the power of questions and how that's can be so less intimidating for both parties instead of me
What do you
trying to
think?
find, well, just me trying to find like the perfect words that impose maybe my thought process or ideas to the conversation, while questions might get that out a little more organically.
Absolutely. And questions also do something for you. They buy you time. So sometimes the teacher's presenting to you a problem that is out of left field. And as an experienced teacher, we know, you know, whatever they've gotten themselves into, like how in the world are we going to get themselves out of this? By asking questions allows them to start processing more, but it buys you a little time to come up with some ideas. And often within questioning, Keith, that teacher will answer their own question by talking more, or they'll trip up on a solution, which is another powerful way of following up. I love it when that happens. So,
They're
all
also
right.
the same kinds of questions we use as teachers with our students. I mean, they remind me of the same way I talk to my students. And so I guess it's both coaching. You know,
It is,
both
isn't it?
things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. With our students that are a little bit older than the ones we normally deal with. So, thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to go back and share my screen, and hopefully I'll do this right. I'm going to give you a little scenario. Whoop. So we're going to have a practice role play conversation. And when you go into your groups, the first thing you're going to decide is whether or not you want to do this scenario, or do you want to do or a real life problem. So let me read over the scenario and then I'll talk about the real life problem. So I've just made this one up, and I was thinking that as student success coaches, this might be a common thing that you're going to do. So third grade teacher Jim is struggling with student Chris. Chris frequently disrupts his lessons by shouting out, and Jim has asked you for support. So that might be a common thing that you're going to do. And the way you've decided to support Jim, myself, is by coming in and observing the student, which is something that you might do. And so one of your scenarios is that you can have a pre-observation meeting. So the coach is meeting with Jim to gather initial information. And if you're using the ICF framework, that meeting is probably going to be a lot of facilitative talk, because you're not going to provide any solutions. You're not going to work on anything with them, but you're going to be, you know, doing some facilitated to get some more information. And so clarifying, paraphrasing can happen during that conversation. Or you can pretend that you have already, you know, done the observation, and that you're meeting with Jim to share information. And I put this: during the observation, the coach noticed that Jim's mini lesson ran for 40 minutes long and that Chris shouts out correct answers. So that could be like a little post-observation conversation. So here's a little scenario for you to use, or your group can decide to use a real scenario. And if you remember, Lindsay and I made a video that we showed you last time of a real life teacher that we were working with. And your group can actually, you know, say, you know, I have a teacher that I'm working with and I'd like to try this conversation out with everybody in my group. And so you can absolutely do that. So it could be a practice real life conversation. And so to do that within this work, you're going to have about a 5 to 7 minute conversation and then debrief. So somebody is going to be me in that problem, or and that person's going to present the problem, real or scenario. Actually, yeah. So somebody's going to be the teacher, and then somebody's going to be the coach, and then whoever is going to be the teacher is going to elaborate as needed. And who's ever the teacher, try not to make it too hard on the coach. And who's ever the coach is going to try to use the ICF framework and mentoring language to have a conversation, and you can elaborate as needed. And remember, you have a magical power. You can freeze me at any time and ask observers for ideas or support. So you have somebody who's coaching, somebody who's a teacher, and the rest of the people in your group are observers. And what I want the observers to do is to script the conversation and note any type of language used. And in scripting, don't write full sentences. You can just do stems if you want. And be ready to support the coach if the coach does a little timeout for that role play conversation. I want to know that, just to acknowledge that these role play conversations are kind of awkward, but I'm trying to have you practice these skills in a really safe environment. So get all the giggles out and just do your best as you practice this so that you can have a chance to you know, use some of these skills. Are there any questions about this piece? Okay, I'm going to throw into chat, and hopefully that slide that I just pulled up is the directions for your role play. So you can click on that. But we're going to send you off to role play, and we'll pull you back with a few minutes to spare. All right, Chris, can you send people off?
Jim, you need to give us access real quick.
Access.
Oh, not again. I will do that. Boy, I'm failing that one today, aren't I?
Hey, Sue. Oh, she just went. Let me go into that. Hey, oh, Sue, you're still here. Your group with you and Mokalina, it went down to 2 people because Sherry left. So I just had you and Mokalina join room number 6, okay?
That's perfect. I just accidentally came back to grab the link, so I'm sorry if I messed it up.
Oh, okay. It just says you have not joined. Let me see if I could just say, if you.
Oh, here, I got it. I can do it myself.
Okay.
I just figured it out.
Boy, it's just so much fun to see everybody flooding in at once. So coaches, unfortunately, we run out of time for today because of the first little snafu of getting you into your rooms originally. I wanted us to debrief together to hear how this first conversation went, but we won't get there. I want to let you know the next time we meet, we're going to finish up with the mentoring language and have the same format, put you back in and have another role play conversation. And hopefully in that time, we'll be able to debrief, and I want to hear your thoughts about this process. But again, I want to thank you for the gift of your time today. I know how busy you all are. And Chris and I were just talking. I look forward to spending time with you, seriously. Planning this and being able to talk with you about this brings me great joy in my work. So thank you for everything that you give to our students. And you too, Chris, and your amazing blanket.